Yeah, I don't think that God, the universe, or whoever is in charge wants me to make YouTube videos because things keep going wrong. There was the whole nonsense with the One Piece video earlier this week, and this time I've tried to film this video like 3 times. And the first time, I wasn't recording the audio. The second time, something happened with my camera, lost all the footage. So I don't know what's going to happen this time. If you're watching this, it worked. Anyways, hey, what's happening? My name is D. Welcome back to Book Reviews with a Regular Dude. Today I'm going to be talking about Zachary, Ying, and the Dragon Emperor by Zhao. Zhao. I don't know how to say it. Come on, D. This is a middle grade fantasy. It came out in like 2021, I think. It's about a young boy named Zachary who has trouble fitting in school and like in his town. I think it's a small town in like Maine or something like that. You know what? I don't trust myself to paraphrase the premise. Let me just read it. Zachary Ying never had many opportunities to learn about his Chinese heritage. His single mom was busy enough making sure they got by, and his schools never taught anything except Western history and myths. So Zach is woefully unprepared when he discovers that he was born to host the spirit of the first emperor of China for a vital mission, sealing the leaking portal to the Chinese underworld before the upcoming Ghost Month blows it wide open. This mission takes an immediate wrong turn when the first emperor botches his attempt to possess Zachary's body and binds to Zach's AR gaming headset instead, leading to a battle where Zach's mom's soul gets taken by demons. Now, with one of history's most infamous tyrants yapping in his headset, Zach must journey across China to heist magical artifacts and defeat figures from history and myth, all while learning to wield the Emperor's incredible water dragon powers. And if Zach can't finish the mission in time, the spirits of the underworld will flood into the mortal realm and he could lose his mom forever. I didn't read that premise before I bought the book. I just really wanted to read something else by this author because I liked Iron Widow. I wanted to love Iron Widow, but the characters and I think just the heaviness of the themes took me out of it. I did a whole review on that already, but basically I was triggered the whole time I was reading that one, so it was hard for me to enjoy it. So I want to try something else because I think this author is a cool person. Anyways, enough yapping. Let's get into the review. Let's start with things that I liked about this book. First and foremost, I'm just so happy that a book like this exists. The main character, Zachary, is struggling to fit in his small town environment. He's the only Chinese kid, maybe the only kid of color in his school. He feels like he doesn't really fit the mold of masculinity, and he's queer. Books like this, protagonists like this need to exist because there are a lot of kids that can identify with one or more of those intersecting identities, one or more of those insecurities and struggles. So books like this are important because they can help kids who don't necessarily fit the white, cisgendered, able-bodied, heterosexual mold feel a little bit less alone. Growing up, I didn't really see myself in many or any of the books that I read or TV shows, movies that I watched. I'd have to do a lot of mental gymnastics in order to fit into a story. So I really hope that there's a nerdy, queer Chinese kid out there who reads this book and feels seen and is able to see themselves in the hero and can see that they can be the hero too. A lot of Zachary's struggles resonated for me, obviously not directly a one-for-one representation, but I can definitely relate to being the only one in a community. I grew up in a suburb just outside of Vancouver, and I didn't meet another black kid until I was 13 or 15. I didn't have the same experience with queerness as Zachary, which I've mentioned a couple times in this video already. It's stated, it's a part of Zachary's character, but it's not a huge part of the story, if that makes sense. He has a crush on a guy who ends up being not so great, and then he has maybe a mild attraction to another guy, but it doesn't go any further than that because he's 12 and he's got to save his mom's soul and all of China. There isn't time. But I think it's an important part of his character. I think it adds to his feelings of being an outcast, it adds to his insecurities. And like I said, I think it's just important that representation is there. I definitely related to Zachary's feelings of not necessarily meeting the standards of masculinity when I was his age. I was pretty small and scrawny, and I wasn't super into the same sports as the guys in my school. They were super into hockey. I hate hockey. I had a lot of emotion as a kid, a lot of sadness and a lot of anger, and I was pretty expressive with it, which it's pretty frowned upon amongst other dudes, especially that young. And my closest friend was a girl, so they basically made fun of me for being a sad boy who gets along with women. Joke's on them, that's pretty much my brand now. Also, Zachary's kind of the new kid in the beginning of the story, and I can relate to that. My mom put me in a Christian school when I was like 13 or something because she thought that would like make the bullying stop, which it didn't. It actually got much, much worse because in my first school, these dudes would like try to beat me up and we would scrap because I had feelings. In my new school and then in my high school, the dudes there made fun of me for being black, and one would try to fight me all the time because I was the black kid. It's fine. I've been to therapy. I wrote a poem about it, and this is not a story time. This is a book review. I love the fact that this book dives into heavy topics and themes. You know, it's a middle grade. The intended audience is, you know, middle schoolers. I think sometimes people forget that kids are like human beings and are capable of like deep thoughts and deep emotions. So when they think something is meant for kids, they like dumb it down, and it's pretty condescending. Zhao does not do this in this book. One of the big themes in this book is grief, which is a really important conversation to have with kids. Also, this book discusses politics, systemic oppression, religion, and faith, normalizes, you know, being queer, having a single mom. There's a whole conversation about morality, what is right, what is wrong between the main character and the ghost of the first emperor of China. Shit gets deep. I haven't watched enough of their content, but Zhao strikes me as like a mythology nerd, and I like that they play with mythology in their works. Like we see it in Iron Widow, and we see it here, and the focus is Chinese mythology, but there's also references to like the kind of mythology you would have studied in middle school. And there's a cool conversation about how superheroes are modern mythology. And since this is a fantasy, we got to talk about the magic, because magic systems and how magic works is a big part of a fantasy book as far as I'm concerned. And this shit's really cool, like kids getting magic powers by being possessed by ghosts. It reminds me of an anime that I watched when I was about 12 years old. It's called Shaman King. I think they rebooted it recently, but I think I've seen it recently when I was like scrolling streaming services. Plus the whole gotta go on an adventure / dangerous mission to recover the soul of a beloved guardian is very Yu-Gi-Oh! In fact, I'm pretty sure that this book was inspired by Yu-Gi-Oh! At least loosely, and I'm aware that the author is a fan of that show. I've seen the show. I wasn't like super into it because I didn't understand the rules. Did anybody play the game? I never wanted to play, but I always wanted to know how it worked, like how the points worked and stuff like that. And the dudes in my middle school and high school that were into Yu-Gi-Oh! Refused to explain it to me. Yeah, it was really weird. Like, this is a bit of a tangent, but in my middle school and high school years, the kids who were the nicest to me were like jocks. And then the band kids and the nerds were kind of like the rich kids. So they were really mean to everyone. And they would say some like mad racist shit to me, which is beside the point. I'm babbling and I'm really sorry. What I was trying to get at is that like I read a lot of books and I watched some anime and read a couple comic books, and I would have loved to talk to other people who were into that kind of thing, but those people refused to speak to me, and they basically like implied that I wasn't smart enough to get the intricacies of Dragon Ball, or like there's no way that a dumb like N-word like me would have read Anne Rice at age 15 or 16 or whatever. And damn, what a tangent. Let's get back to this review. Said it before, I'll say it again. I love the way that Zhao writes. Like after reading Iron Widow and reading this book, you can tell the way they structure sentences is just kind of how they think. I was gonna say that this book isn't nearly as like vivid and raw or whatever, but I still think that it's like vivid. It's just that it's not as raw or angry. It's much more lighthearted and fun. It's like bright and vibrant even in its like downtime and sad moments, which I think is appropriate for the age group of the intended audience. I think that the main character, Zachary, has a really complete arc in this book. You know, I like the growth that we see here. He gains self-love and self-confidence. He learns to let go of some pain and grief that he's been holding on to. He's a really sweet kid, and I'm rooting for him the whole time. Something that I've learned about myself and my taste in books as I've been like getting back into reading over the last 2 years or so is that I need to like and care about and root for the protagonist in order to stay engaged with the story. So if I don't like the character or any of the characters, then it's hard for me to stay engaged, and I'm probably going to DNF it. Although I've only DNF'd like maybe 3 books this year. Okay, let's move on to things that I'm conflicted about with this book. This book is full of pop culture references. and it does not work for me. I don't really like direct pop culture references in any media, especially if it's like the punchline of a joke or the joke is that a reference was made. But in the context of this book, it makes sense. A lot of these references come up as Zachary is trying to understand how the magic works, and so it makes sense to me that he would equate it to things he's familiar with in order to better understand it. And for readers who are the age of the intended audience, I think that these references will make the book more interesting and more engaging for them because, like, oh, I know what that show is. Oh, I know what that video game is. I know who that celebrity is. The pacing is pretty brisk, but one, I think that's just the author's style. And two, I think it's appropriate for the age of the intended audience. And I say this a lot in my reviews, but there's nothing in this book that I straight up don't like. I think that this book is good. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a good blend of sci-fi and fantasy. There's tons of action. There's heists. Kid takes over the mob for a second. There's ghosts and demons and mythology, lots of cool stuff. And I think I said this before, but I really do wish that a book like this existed when I was a kid. I wish that it existed when my little half-brother was a kid. I wish that it existed when my cousin was a kid. And those are very specific people I just listed, but I'm trying to tell them, hey, if you're watching this shit, go read this book. You'll have fun. Not only because it's fun, but I think it would have been really cool to see a kid go on this like fun, action-packed hero's journey and be able to see ourselves in the hero, where the hero looks more like us and the hero eventually learns to be proud to look like us. The drawing of Zachary looks a lot like my brother when he was young. But anyways, was it good? Yeah. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, I did. I think it's a lot of fun. Obviously, if it was a little older, a little more mature, I would have had even more fun with it. But this book isn't for me. And I don't mean like in the, it wasn't for me. I mean like it wasn't written for my age group. It references a bunch of stuff that I'm familiar with for sure. And it speaks to like a younger version of me. So I did enjoy it, but I imagine it would be like watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, but without like the lens of nostalgia. So yeah, I thought it was really fun. I would have preferred like an older, maybe grittier, darker version of this story, but it's not for me. So like, who cares? And would I recommend it? Maybe. I think that I'm tripped up because I know that my following is like mostly a demographic that wouldn't necessarily relate to or resonate with the main character or this story. So I guess if you're able to engage with the text without it kind of bothering you that this book isn't for you, then yeah, I think it's a lot of fun, especially if you like know what Yu-Gi-Oh is, or are familiar with like Avatar: The Last Airbender or mythology, like Chinese mythology, or if you grew up kind of nerdy and an outcast and queer and you're navigating like your queerness and your gender, sexuality, stuff like that, then there's definitely stuff for you to relate to. But if you're not able to, I guess, look past the fact that the character doesn't look like you very easily, then no, I wouldn't. I think that's kind of how I go into reading a lot of like YA. And this is the only middle grade I've read since I was a middle schooler. But, you know, when I go into reading YA, I'm often like reminding myself that this isn't for me. So it's like, of course you're going to find some of these things not relatable or not understand them. It's not for you. You're not supposed to be here kind of thing. Obviously, like I think it's okay to read whatever as long as you're able to not like center yourself in the story because this is someone else's story. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. I ran out of notes and I'm just talking. Actually, I need to stop talking because I'm late to meet a friend for coffee. I had a Zoom call where I was basically like scheduling when I was going to go into a school to teach some creative writing workshops, and I didn't think I'd have time to film between that meeting and this coffee with my friend / mentor. And then I was like, oh, I definitely have enough time. But I've used up most of it. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. I do mainly book reviews. I'm reacting to Shadow and Bone right now. And honestly, I'm kind of curious. I was asking for book recommendations before, but I'm actually more curious, what kind of videos would you like to see from me? Do you want like a rapid fire list of recommendations? Do you want some hot takes or something? I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm looking for ideas. Oh, and if you like what I'm doing, you want to support the channel, support what I'm trying to do here, you can buy me a coffee, tip me in the Ko-fi link down below. I think that's how you say the website name. I don't really know. Anyways, thanks again for watching. My name is B. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.